If they want to stop him from doing what he wants, they have to make him. So that's definitely been a strategy by the president, but that's not unconstitutional. Where it crosses a line is if that happens, he goes into court and a court says, you're not allowed to do this executive branch, or I'm putting it on hold, I'm putting an injunction. And then if the president or the executive branch defies that, that's where we get into real trouble here. So for sure, Donald Trump has taken a conscious.
So once again, like, what does this real trouble look like? Okay, because I tried to look throughout history, I couldn't really find anything. If you know some things, let me know in the comments. But what does this real trouble looks like? Because ever since day one, Trump has defined every single politician norm there is. Like, he doesn't care. You know what I'm saying? So like, what does this real trouble look like? So like I said before, like this here, what we're going to talk about is the only thing that's giving me any sort of sleep well at night type of situation. Like, this is the only trust or I believe guardrails that is guarding our democracy from literally exploding or imploding on itself. Like this right here. And that's what Thomas Jefferson, once again, you can say what you want about the founding fathers. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of conversation to be had. But one thing that they got right, or at least implemented, is the checks and balances. The system that keeps individuals in check, obviously, and creates a balance. That's why, hey, it's called checks and balances. And this prevents anyone from consolidating too much power, too much say so. You know what I'm saying? Just strutting around doing what they want, saying what they want with no repercussions or guardrails or any responsibility. And that's a good thing. And that's the only thing, in my opinion, that is stopping Trump from completely destroying America. Because we all know, hey, guess what? Say it with me. Trump is a fascist. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no, let's just kind of see. No, we already seen enough. How much more do we need to see in order to say, hey, Trump is a fascist? Now, if you guys don't know, and once again, I have a Substack, go ahead. I go in complete detail of this situation, this story, in more detail. So if you guys are readers, which I hope you are, go ahead and read that. But just real quick, if you guys don't know what the three branches of government and their function is, hey, guess what? I'm going to break this down to you like a science here. All right. So the legislative branch, which is the Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate, their main function is to make laws, writes, debates, and passes laws, approve budget and government spending, has the power to declare war, can't override a presidential veto with a 2/3 majority, confirms presidential appointments, which is the Senate. Then we have the executive branch. Pay attention. Which is the president, vice president, and federal agencies. The main function is to enforce laws, carries out and administers federal laws. Commander-in-chief of the military appoints government officials, judges, and ambassadors, signs or vetoes legislations from Congress, conducts foreign policy, and negotiates treaties. The third branch, which is, in Thomas Jefferson's words, not mine, peep this, he says, the judiciary is the only anchor ever yet imagined by man by which a government can be held to the principles of its constitution. So, like I said in plenty of videos, the courts, the lower courts and the Supreme Courts is the last guardrail. If Trump passes through that, which, you know, in my article, I kind of hinted at some ways that he could do it, that's 90% of game over. After that is like sending military throughout the streets and literally locking up his political opponents. That's like the last of it. Then we're in complete, you know, fascism. But the judicial branch, the Supreme Court and the lower federal courts, the main functions interprets law. That's determining whether laws are constitutional or unconstitutional, resolve disputes involving federal laws and treaties, hears appeals from lower courts, protects individuals' rights, and upholds the Constitution. That right there, in a nutshell, is why, once again, I know there's plenty of conversation on what a true democracy looks like. Is the United States in 2025 living up to the true definition? Yes, I get it. But this right here is more than what other countries can do and offer, which is pretty good. Once again, it's not a perfect system, but it's better than no system. And it's surprising, over 200 plus years, this was implemented, which is crazy. So let's go ahead and go to CNN and kind of hear what they're talking about. And once again, guys, I'm on Substack. Go ahead, support me over there. I'm doing a lot of changes to this YouTube channel, and unfortunately, this is going to not be a source of income for me with these changes. But once again, I'm gonna get into that into a later video, but let's go ahead and get into the video.
Executive power has ever argued. Now look.
Well, hey, let's
Vice
start
President J.D. Vance is questioning whether courts can block actions taken by the president, and some are inferring that he's raising the possibility that the president just ignore these orders. This is what the vice president wrote, quote, "Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power." This followed a judge's order that temporarily blocked Elon Musk and his team from accessing sensitive Treasury Department systems. With us now is CNN senior legal analyst, former...
So even with J.D. Vance, okay, and once again, I went into detail in my article that's posted today, or whenever you see this is posted that day. J.D. Vance is wrong. Like, and of course they're gonna get into like the details of that. But how can someone like J.D. Vance, who went to school, he knows some things, okay? He may not be the sharpest knife in the kitchen, but he knows this. And in my opinion, what he's doing is he's telling his voters, okay, hey, the judges should not be able to do this. But he knows it's important, and this has been throughout, this is what the Constitution is built on. He knows this. But what I'm thinking he's banking on is knowing how uneducated his voters are. They're going to hear that and say, well, why do we need judges? Well, we don't need to listen to the judges. Who are they? The deep state? Are they woke all of a sudden? And yada, 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 all that good stuff, or all that bad stuff. But he's not going to tell them, hey, checks and balances. This is what keeps everyone in check. You see what I'm saying? He's purposely telling his listeners, his voters, lies. Just enough a lie for them to question some things that if you read history, it'll tell you why this is implemented or why it should be implemented. But hey, there you go.
Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York and Philadelphia Eagles fan. That is why I am wearing the tie this morning for you, sir. Good morning, Ellie Hoding. So J.D. Vance writes, judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. We maybe should underline and bold that word legitimate there because it's doing a lot of work. What can courts do?
It certainly is doing a lot of work, John, and J.D. Vance is really stepping very close to dangerous ground with that statement, and he knows it, by the way. This is a Yale Law School graduate. So the notion that the courts cannot stop the executive from doing what he wants, the notion that the executive may have the option of defying the courts, that is completely beyond even what the most extreme right-wing conservative theory in favor of broad executive power has ever argued. Now, look.
Now, that statement right there, I don't know if even the far right individual will say, hey, J.D. Vance, whoa, hold on. Now you're going a little too far, now questioning the judicial branch and checking the president. Is that really what they're saying? Is that really what they're going to say? I don't think so. Especially when Trump is out there saying like he's, they're trying to root out fraud and theft and government waste. Like, he's beating on these simple terms in a sense of we have an opposition within the government that's stopping us from doing these good deeds that we're trying to do for you guys. But we have this, these judges stopping us, which is, if they're stopping me, they're stopping you. And we don't want them to stop our progression into the golden age or whatever that's supposed to mean, to make America great. So what do you think is going to happen? How do you think that's going to radicalize individuals who's hearing that, who don't know how to crack open a book, but they can crack open a beer and do some crazy things? Once again, like, you got to, like, put yourself in a really simple-minded person who doesn't read and can't comprehend well. If you're listening to JD Vance and Trump, how is that making you feel? Like the deep state is stopping you and your country from getting to where you want it, because you voted for Trump, where you want it to be at. That's why January 6th happened.
There is a very broad view of executive power. Sometimes it's called the unitary executive theory, which holds essentially that the president is all powerful within the executive branch. But even proponents of that theory do not say that the president is free to disregard an order of the court. If that were to happen, that is a line in the sand. That has not been crossed. Donald Trump did not cross that line in his first 4 years. He has not crossed that line in his first couple weeks here in his second term. But if we get over that line, then we've got a major crisis. And I think it's irresponsible of J.D. Vance. I know he didn't quite go there, but he got pretty close to even suggest that.
And to be clear, the courts stopped all kinds of executive action from President Biden, too. The courts jump in all the time on executive actions because the Constitution is sort of murky on what a president can and can't do. Let me just read you the first part of Vance's tweet, because this actually sort of expands on his thinking. If a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general and how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. But here's the thing. When a judge weighs in on powers that belong to Congress, on laws that Congress passed, and the executive, the president, may be ignoring or crossing the line on those laws, that might be another thing.
Yeah, I mean, even the premise of J.D. Vance's statement there is incorrect. I mean, judges do have the authority to block extra constitutional actions by the executive branch or by Congress. And John, you're exactly right. That has happened countless times to every administration in recent history and probably in the entire history of the United States. And it's part of being president. Presidents have railed publicly against decisions by the judiciary, but at times that's what the judiciary does. That's what the judiciary exists for, to say, no, you've gone too far, either Congress or executive branch. And by the way, we are seeing this spate of decisions from district court judges. Those are trial level federal judges. We'll see another one today on the buyout issue. But remember also, there's a process here. If you lose in the district court and you're the administration and you don't like it, you have the right to appeal up to the Court of Appeals. And then you can even ask the next level, the U.S. Supreme Court, to take the case. So it's not as if the game is over once the district court judge rules. There's still many other layers of protection and appeal built in there, too.
So to what extent, Ellie, do you think that the White House, the Trump White House, knows this and this is a concerted strategy? I ask you this because I read this renowned legal scholar over the last few days who said that the White House is engaging in what's called a make me strategy.
So yeah, that I've heard that scholar is a little shaky in some of his opinions. The strategy that Donald Trump has used here so far is he's going to do what he wants first, and then he's going to make plaintiffs. He's going to make state attorneys general. He's going to make private citizens go sue him in court. If they want to stop him from doing what he wants, they have to make him. So that's definitely been a strategy by the president, but that's not unconstitutional. Where it crosses a line is if that happens, he goes into court and a court says, you're not allowed to do this executive branch, or I'm putting it on hold, I'm putting an injunction. And then if the president or the executive branch defies that, that's where we get into real trouble here. So for sure, Donald Trump has taken a conscious...
So once again, like, what does this real trouble look like? Okay, because I tried to look throughout history. I couldn't really find anything. If you know some things, let me know in the comments. But what does this real trouble looks like? Because ever since day one, Trump has defined every single politician norm there is. Like, he doesn't care. You know what I'm saying? So, like, what does this real trouble look like? Because once again, a convicted felon still got voted to be president a second time. So I need to know if Trump decides to like ignore or just disregard any court decisions, then what? Like, what really can happen? And I even stated in my article, like, even with the court decision that happened a few years ago, or I think just last year. I mean, I'm so lost in time right now, like, where he's pretty much granted immunity, you know, from convicting any crimes as president, if it's within his power to do so. You know, so it's like, how far can he really go until he finally faces any sort of responsibility? That's the question. And if there's really nothing except for like making him look bad in public or sending him to court and having all these court hearings, we seen that throughout his first administration for plenty of things, and it did nothing to his credibility. If anything, people loved it, and that made him more popular, which is weird. So it's like, I need to know, because I don't think he knows, or I don't think he cares at this point. So that's my question.
Legal strategy of, I'm going to do what I want. Maybe I'll lose in the courts. That's fine. I mean, I think there's problems in that, but that's not unconstitutional. Where we cross the line is if he starts defying the courts.
Just to be clear, it was Elie Honig, who was a renowned legal scholar, writing about the Make Me strategy. And then 20 seconds or less, the Supreme Court, this Supreme Court, do we have any hints about where they may be predisposed to go on how much power an executive has?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this Supreme Court has generally been taking a broad view of executive power, but I also think it's a mistake to say, oh, they're a 6-3 Supreme Court. They ruled in favor of Trump on immunity. They're going to do whatever he said. They have rejected Donald Trump at many key junctures. They rejected his election fraud claims. They rejected some of his efforts to stop prosecutors from taking steps against him. They rejected his efforts to resist a subpoena. So I think this Supreme Court will not tolerate if the executive branch crosses that line of defying the courts.
Yeah, and also Congress. Yeah. When Congress writes laws with specific language, this court seems to give deference to that. Elie Honig, great to see you this morning. Congratulations on your big win. I know.
All right. So once again, that's a good point that he made at the end of that interview. Is the Supreme Court, which we know that he packed with a few of his loyalists in there. That was my first, you know, kind of just thinking of the future. If, you know, he gets denied at the district level, and he takes this all the way up to the Supreme Courts, are they just gonna say, oh, that's our boy Trump? I mean, he got us in here, so of course, whatever he wants, we're gonna pass. But he made a good point. When it comes to some of the hearings, they made a lot of good decisions. When it comes to a lot of the claims throughout the, stop the steal and a lot of these bogus claims of that the election was stolen, they denied a bunch of that. So that's good, right? So why do I feel, why don't I not feel more confident in these courts with these Supreme Court justices? I'm just saying, like, everything is just so out of the ordinary. And in my article, I went into more detail of a lot of other loyalists that he put into a lot of key areas that is like, well, if this person does this, then now the ball is in this court. But hey, guess what? He put a loyalist as the referee in this game. You know what I'm saying? So Trump is not a genius. Hey, don't get it twisted. But he has learned from his first administration, his first term. And that's where we need to get our together. That's simple. But once again, guys, if you agree or disagree with anything I said in this video, let me know in the comments down below, or hit the Substack link so you can read my full article where I go into detail of what we just talked about today. And like always, let's have that conversation.